like Pelucranos, and that is 2 main deck copies of Mizium Skin.
We saw one deck with Mizium Skin last week in Indianapolis, so this is not the first time. Certainly is not a conventional choice by any means, but
certainly out of the deck by now against Esper Control.
Yes, most likely. Well, there is Detention Sphere, there is Azorius
That's
Charm.
true.
Not 100%er, but I think in the post-board games, you want to be much more of a card advantage deck than just a straight aggro deck. And then that sort of, when you're building your deck that way, then things like Mizium Skin make less sense.
Jeff also has a really interesting sideboard choice in Aetherize, which I saw him in a backup feature match earlier today use to get rid of 4 Zathrid Necromancer tokens against the Esper Humans deck.
Yes.
And so that's quite an interesting one. As we have the first non-land play of the game from Adam Stutt, and that will be a bear. It's a Tidebinder Mage.
2 blue in the mana symbol, which is the reason it's still in his deck, even though there are no targets, presumably in Jeff's deck.
Jeff content to play Temple, Godless Shrine on his first 3 turns of the game. Adam did not have one of the 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop draws. He is going to get in for 2 damage. And turn 3, Mutavault, signaling that Night Veil Spectre not an option for the turn.
Yep, and then these...
And also no Thassa, as Doomblade is going to take out the Tidebinder Mage.
And in the post-board games, you know, it's very, very important for the mono blue list to be conscious of not overextending in Supreme Verdict, which is why you see their game plans sculpt around things like Jace and Biden and Thassa and Mutavault. So if Adam sideboarded, you know, the way that the blue players typically do here, he doesn't have a lot in terms of just the straight beatdowns looking at his deck. He's more about playing a slower, grindier card advantage game.
Activating Mutavault pre-combat. Mutavault comes into the red zone. 3 mana for Hero's Downfall to take down the land. I think Adam is probably somewhat happy about seeing Hero's Downfall taking down a Mutavault, because it's not going to take down a Jace later or a Master of Waves.
It depends what he has set up. The biggest issue is, you know, you would prefer to trade Hero's Downfall for your creatures that are in play to mitigate exactly how much impact Supreme Verdict makes against you. Every time they counter or remove one of your creatures, it's actually kind of a small victory because it means that your Thassa and your Master, or, well, Master's not a good example, but your Thassa, for example, or your Mutavaults are going to have a higher impact because those things naturally survive Supreme Verdict anyway.
Just another land and another pass from Jeff, and then another Hero's Downfall once Adam decides to attack with his Frostburn Weird. Doesn't want to deal with the bluff game of chicken of trying to activate the Frostburn Weird, and instead just lets it die. And Cloudfin Raptor is the follow-up play. Not the strongest play on turn 4.
No, and Adam is so far missing his, you know, key components in the matchup.
He does have Pithing Needle in his hand to be able to take care of whichever Planeswalker Jeff happens to find first, I imagine. Adam does have a Master of Waves in his hand.
But it's hard to imagine against, you know, Esper Control that this Master of Waves ends up, you know, sticking and just running away with the game. That's very rarely the case.
So another Cloudfin Raptor before Master of Waves comes down. We're going to stack a bunch of triggers here. Both of them are going to grow very large because the elementals are 2/1s, as is the Master of Waves, so you're allowed to stack it in the correct order. 3 2/1 elementals and 2 2/3 Cloudfin Raptors and a Master in a Pear Tree are currently in play for the Mono Blue Devotion pilot, who attacks with 1 of his Cloudfin Raptors and passes the turn back to Jeff.
And these are exactly the types of draws that are actually, I think, really hard for Mono Blue Devotion to beat because of your exposure to Supreme Verdict.
Yeah, and there it is. 3 for 1ing Adam, being able to take out every creature on the battlefield. Adam sort of had to know that that was coming, but the early Heroes Downfalls forced Adam's hand into overextending a little bit.
He still needs to get some amount of pressure going or else he loses his Sphinx's Revelation. His hand kind of was what it was, but not where he wanted to be in the matchup.
Adam draws his 1 of Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. Still has that Pithing Needle.
So I assume we're going to be casting the... Maybe he's preempting Elspeth right now?
Yeah, that's probably a good bet.
So
Elspeth Sun's Champion is the card named with Pithing Needle, as a follow-up Master of Waves comes up after that.
Pretty anemic right now.
Just making 4 power for 4 mana. But Gainsay is going to counter it before it can do any damage. So Adam, with 1 card in hand, and not but a needle to his name, other than 5 islands, passing back to Jeff. The Pithing Needle is going to be able to shut off Jeff's win condition that isn't Elixir of Immortality. That actually, yeah, he does run 1 copy, does Jeff, but 4 copies of Detention Sphere are going to be able to cancel that out pretty easily.
Yeah, and Jeff has to be really happy with the pacing of this game right now.
Divination into Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize whiffs, of course, showing only the Nykthos. Jeff falls to 14. And it looks like another island for Adam.
So let's see if Jeff has one of his big cards to capitalize with. Sphinx's Revelation being the most obvious one. Jace also quite good here.
And there is Jace from the other side of the board. That is going to find Dissolve. Jeff going to be able to dig deeper in his deck to find those cards that we're talking about. Either Jace or even Detention Sphere, if he has the Elspeth in his hand, would be quite good here.
Looks like he has Detention Sphere in hand. I think, he wants to wait and just use that to kill a creature if that comes up, and if he happens to draw the Elspeth, then take care of the needle.
Then so be it, absolutely. Taking out Thassa is much more important.
Yes.
If Adam is able to amass any sort of board presence. Especially since it doesn't appear as though Jeff has a Sphinx's Revelation. And so if Adam happens to draw a bunch of creatures and Jeff happens to draw only 1 or 2 spells in that time, the Thassa could become a huge problem. And so we'll use the first Detention Sphere to deal with Thassa.
Yeah. Both players just living off the top, but Jeff, of course, much better situated for this kind of game.
Yeah. Adam's deck, for an aggro deck, it does have 25 lands, so it only has 1 less land than does Jeff's control deck at 26.
Yeah, I prefer to think of Mono Blue Devotion more as a board presence deck and less as a beatdown deck.
Yeah.
It's not killing you on turn 4. It's locking you out of combat and killing you a little bit later in the game.
A little bit of draw-go action, which is exactly where Jeff wants to be living. Thoughtseize again is going to reveal a negate. And so negate is going to hit the bin. And Jeff just passes. So Adam finding a lot of lands on top of his deck, not able to find a creature to be able to capitalize on Jeff not finding a Sphinx of Revelation or a Jace.
Mm-hmm.
But able to stay, somewhat at parity. A little bit of flood here. Jeff has more lands in play, but his deck is better equipped to use them.
It definitely makes his best draws more powerful, too.
Yes. As Frostburn Weird hits the board, that's going to represent a third of Jeff's life total every time it swings, should it be able to attack.
I'm not that optimistic.
Well, your optimism was, or your pessimism, I should say, was well-founded as Frostburn Weird gets sent to the sphere.
I consider thinking of myself as a realist.
There you go. Yeah. That's a good description.
Jeff's still waiting for some haymaker.
It looks like Azorius Charm to draw a card here. Azorius Charm's fallen out of favor recently in Esper and Blue-White. Why do you think that is?
Because if that's the case, it's because people are lunatics, basically.
Really?
I think it's just one of the best cards in the deck. And because it cantrips, the idea of cutting it is just insanity to me.
Jace, Architect of Thought, again for Adam, and this time it resolves. And now the Fact or Fiction ability is going to turn up Land, Mizium Skin, and Bident of Thassa. We're going to separate it in the piles of legendary artifacts and non-legendary artifacts.
If people are really cutting Azorius Charm from their Blue-White and Esper decks, it is because people outthink themselves sometimes.
Yeah, Azorius Charm is a card that isn't nearly as high impact as it used to be in the much lower land count decks, because you were able to cycle it much more realistically for a spell. you could also flash it back with Snapcaster Mage, and there are a lot of other neat things that you can do. Give your Restoration Angels lifelink, for example. The Esper control decks are not nearly as able to take advantage of Azorius Charm. It is still quite powerful, though, as Bident of Thassa enters the battlefield as well. So, any future Thassa God of the Seas are going to be immediately active, in spite of that Cloudfin Raptor getting its last breath.
And this is actually kind of dangerous territory for Jeff a little bit, since now every creature that Adam draws with any power or a Mutavault even is quite threatening with Bident in play.
Yeah, Bident is, to me, when I first saw this deck happen, was one of the main reasons to play this deck, was because every card becomes a Shadow Mage Infiltrator. As Aetherling, it comes off the top for Jeff, and that is quite good for the Esper control deck. Finally able to find something to apply some pressure and end this game. Detention Sphere number 3 takes out the Jace to prevent future card draw.
Yeah, the Aetherling on a board this stabilized is likely to be game over.
See if Adam can get out of this pickle-ickle-ickle. See what he draws. It's another island. Looks like a hand full of basic lands for Adam, staring down an Aetherling.
And now Aetherling locks out basically all of Adam's non-flyers from this spot.
And here comes Aetherling in for 8. And with Adam at a neat and tidy 24, that is an exact 3-turn clock.
Convenient.
Very nice. Nice of them to set that up for us with the last breath to gain Adam the 4 life. And Aetherling's swing is matched by Judge's Familiar, which, while not looking terribly impressive, with the Bident in play, is still representing card draw.
Yeah, the problem is just, can you do anything about this Aetherling in time? And the answer is likely to be no.
Yeah, there's only there are 2 Pithing Needles in Jeff Johnson's sideboard, but only 1 in Adam's, and so the 1 is in play, and it's naming Elspeth, so it's not able to shut off the Aetherling currently on the board. Adam falls to 8. He has 1 turn to find a mythical out. And
seeing none, decides to give it up.
Yep, picks up all of his islands, and we're going to get ready for a game 3. So Jeff Johnson is able to even it up. His Esper control deck lost the first game to Adam Stutt's Mono Blue Devotion, but able to pull it even in game 2, and we're going to head to a rubber match.
Yeah. Adam needs more stuff that draws cards and fewer little dorky creatures.
Right. Yeah, in a match of who can draw more lands, the Esper control deck is going to win eventually because all of their top decks are that much more powerful. The Mono Blue control deck, or Mono Blue Devotion deck, has top decks along the lines of Judge's Familiar and Cloudfin Raptor, which are not that great on turn 10.
Yeah, and the next couple set of cards are also not that much better than Raptors and Judge's Familiar.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, Tidebinder Mages and Frostburn Weirds.
And
sure.
Yeah.
But their best top decks are Jade's Architect of Thought, Bident, Master of Waves, even a Nightveil Spectre, which I imagine, do you think he took out Nightveil Spectre? I don't think so.
Well,
or did he just not see it?
I would be surprised if it got cut altogether, but it is, you know, it is another card that is kind of low impact. It's expensive relative to the removal spells in the Esper deck and the counters in the Esper deck. It's possible you want to just kind of ignore that thing altogether. I understand there's the Dreamland scenario where you're making land drops or you flip over one of their counters and that can be very good, but I've really rarely seen a Nightveil Spectre actually connect against an Esper deck. That said, it does provide 3 Devotion, so it's very nice to have alongside Master and especially Thassa, but it is something of a long shot. I'm surprised kind of by the extent to which Adam had non-creature, card drawing spells in his deck.
Yeah,
specifically a Mizium skin in the post-board games. I was really surprised by.
2 main deck Mizium skins, kept them in post-board to be able to fight, as you said, against things like Hero's Downfall and Detention Sphere. But it's a little bit strange because the type of thing that you want to be doing is applying as much pressure as you possibly can. Although, to be fair, Adam does not have any additional creatures in his sideboard, so it's not like he can add more creatures.
Right.
He can only protect the ones that he's equipped with.
Yeah, it's, you know, The mono blue deck in general in this matchup, time is not on their side, but that can change with card drawing spells. But once you actually are drawing a bunch of cards, which permanents, which creatures you're actually drawing usually doesn't matter a ton. Of course, you'd like to have Thassa. Some of your creatures are higher impact than others, but your individual threats don't really matter that much. So in both of these worlds, Mysium Skin's a little out of place because it's not a threat in the games where you need threats. And in the games that you're winning, it isn't really protecting anything specifically that needs to be protected.
Both these players are shuffling up for the next game, this time with the Mono Blue Devotion deck on the play. Among decks that get, of course, every deck is better on the play, but Mono Blue Devotion is significantly better on the play than it is on the draw.
Yeah, the difference between Mono Black on the play and on the draw is really, it's just Pack Rat. That's the only card that really changes dramatically in power level. In the Mono Blue deck, it feels like nearly all the cards are much, much better on the play than on the draw.
Yeah, Mono Blue Devotion is not a deck equipped to come from behind.
Right.
It's very good at keeping a lead, but not really good at coming back, especially against Esper Control.
Shades against of the sort of the old Delver deck in Standard.
Right.
Very good at leveraging an advantage once it's ahead, not as good at catching up while it's in the losing state.
Very good at turning 52% into 65, into 70, but not so much catching up from behind, as we see a turn 1 Island go from Adam Stutt, and a turn 2 Frostburn Weird. Jeff Johnson led off with Hallowed Fountain, setting his mana up, and then a Plains, and Last Breath on the Frostburn Weird.
Doesn't want Adam to untap and potentially have a counter spell or a Rapid Hybridization,
or the Mysium Skin that he in fact has in his hand.
Yes. Did you consider the skin?
I did not. Although, Jeff probably, he saw it after sideboard, so he certainly knows it exists. As we see Thassa, God of the Sea, on turn 3, is going to be sent to the Sphere.
And Jeff has to be really happy about getting to curve out with his removal like this.
Yes. Not having to deal with a Cloudfin Raptor is also pretty nice, because if a Cloudfin Raptor had happened, it would still be pecking him, and it would hit him for even more this turn. As Nightveil Spectre hits the board, with one Last Breath already in use, much of the removal of Jeff Johnston's, although there's a second one, so never mind what I was about to say.
Oh! Oh!
And there is the Mysium Skin to protect the Nightveil Spectre.
Notably, Jeff also no black mana right now.
And Elixir of Immortality.
So without black mana, he can't really play his sweeper. His spot. A lot of his spot removal can't be played, and without that, he's basically on Supreme Verdict or Bust to protect himself.
And now the Nightveil Spectre gets to go to work. Mysium Skin makes Nightveil Spectre a lot better against control. There's a land he's able to play, should he so choose. That'll be able to help cast future spells that he happens to hit.
Pretty infuriating if you're Jeff. He finds one of his black sources that he's missing right now.
I'll take that. Thank you very much, says Adam. And Thassa, God of the Sea, again joins the party. And he has a Master of Waves in hand. So this is quickly becoming an Adam Stutt game, although it can easily be canceled out by most likely a black source, but also another Detention Sphere.
Yeah, having this Thassa is critical because it's a way to advance his board without playing into Supreme Verdict.
And there is Supreme Verdict to be able to take care of the Devotion that was going to make Thassa much better. She's alone on the board now, so we'll scry in our upkeep.
And Adam has to be thrilled to trade 1-for-1 with a Supreme Verdict like that. Supreme Verdict is that's the thing that looms over everything when you're playing mono blue against these blue-white and blue-white black decks. Whenever you get to cash it in, whenever your opponent cashes it in without getting that much value, it's a small victory.
Absolutely. He already got the land off of it, so it's already been productive in drawing him, essentially drawing him a card. His Godless Shrine is going to activate and naming. I don't imagine it'll be naming this elixir.
Well,
it is naming Aetherling. So Aetherling has been named. That allows the Elspeth to be unlocked this game. See which of his win conditions Jeff can draw later. As an untapped Watery Grave enters the battlefield and another Detention Sphere. is going to get gainsayed, and in response to gainsay, another gainsay. So, after all those blue spells are countered, Detention Sphere, once again, taking out Thassa.
And that's a big turn there for Jeff, not only finding black mana, but getting Thassa off the table.
Thassa spends a lot of time in the Detention Sphere.
Yes. Well, if you just, if it could just be killed by other things, you would see more diversity.
That's true.
But
unfortunately, Detention Sphere pretty much, you don't see a lot of turn and burned Thassas.
Right. Occasionally Selesnya charmed, but...
Right. As Master of Waves, the loneliest Master of Waves, this time only with one Water Horse. 4 power, still nothing to sneeze at.
And Jeff's already taken some hits this game, so this clock's...
not unreasonable. Just the horse coming in, playing around Azorius Charm.
Yeah, but I don't think that Adam can win the game playing this slowly with nothing left in his hand of note.
Right. Jeff falls to 12, then goes back up to 17 with the Elixir.
And the Elixir makes this much worse, of course, too. Now Jeff at 17. A lot of life to play with. I understand the fear of Azorius Charm there, but what's happening on the board is already kind of compelling Adam to attack in my mind.
Yeah, Jeff has a lot of options, a lot of good top decks here, and really a lot of time to be able to find those options, especially if Adam has decided that attacking for 2 each turn is reasonable, or reasonable enough.
Yeah. I was also not a big fan of the preemptive Python Needle on Aetherling, as now every Planeswalker is a brutal draw as well.
Jeff Johnson now with 2 black mana in play, as Temple of Silence is going to keep whatever it was on top. It's one of the most heartbreaking things when your opponent scries and immediately puts it back on top of their library.
Especially if it's Esper.
Yes. You know it's got to be good if it's
It's
Esper.
got to be good.
Adam has a Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx, that isn't going to activate just yet, as the horse, of course, enters the red zone once again, dropping Jeff to 15.
Adam again says go.
What did we find?
Flooding out yet again.
If we snap kept it on top and then immediately said go, what do you think this spell is?
I would believe that it is either Sphinx's Revelation or Supreme Verdict.
I think that that's a good guess. My money's on Sphinx's Revelation. Although if it's Supreme Verdict, it's about to get better, as here comes Frostburn Weird. And it is Sphinx's Revelation for 3. And with Adam only 2 islands left in his hand, Jeff's going to get to draw these 3 cards at the end of the turn.
And now it's
not a back-breaking one, but still quite good.
Sets the table, and again, Jeff's got a lot of really powerful draws in this spot. Elspeth, Supreme Verdict, but he is falling behind a little bit on the board too. It's his life total is being taxed a little bit, and that's a real backbreaker for Adam there. That Supreme Verdict.
Yep. Adam has no pressure anywhere in sight. None in hand, none in play. Any on the top of his library? Looks like another lonely Master of Waves is what it looked like to me.
I'm sure we'll find out momentarily, as Adam can't really sandbag spells. Oh.
Right. Nope, just a Cloudfin Raptor.
Womp, womp, womp.
Yep, the 0-1 not really going to get it done here, as Jeff is going to quickly wrench control of this game.
Yeah, I think in the games where you don't find your copies of Bident or Jace or anything, your card advantage tools that give you the ability to power through Supreme Verdict, I think this is a real uphill battle. He drew a couple Thassas, they got dealt with Detention Sphere, but...
Jeff now in the enviable position of choosing which of the abilities he most wants to use, decides to use the Factor Fiction ability, and flips up 3 pretty good ones. Although the Thoughtseize is not particularly relevant at this point. Either Divination or 2 cards. He chooses to go with the 2 cards in the form of Divination rather than the Supreme Verdict and Thoughtseize. Thinks he can do better. Passes the turn with 3 mana up instead of casting that Divination, representing a counterspell. Adam's body language is suggesting to me that he has mentally
checked out of this one.
The the flourish with the hand pass.
Yes.
A little bit of a giveaway there. Here comes another Fact or Fiction off the top. These are 2 temples and a detention sphere. Adam suggesting to Jeff which pile he should take.
2 Scrylands is really good here, though. It's not that simple.
It is pretty good. It's able to fix his draws. Detention sphere only really able to do one thing really well. But he goes for the detention sphere to be able to prevent any Jaces or Bidents or Thasses from getting 2 out of hand. Divination is a follow-up play.
And I believe that Jeff has just found an Elspeth also in those 2 cards from Divination.
And so perhaps several turns later, the preemptive Pithing Needle is going to come back to haunt him. As I think that Adam did top deck a Gainsay or a Negate. I think it was a Negate, actually.
I believe it was Negate.
But Jeff has Gainsay in his hand. So he's still going to be able to resolve this Elspeth, should he so choose. Jeff going to 14, because why not? There's Elspeth, Sun's champion. And with the last card in his hand, Adam casts Negate. In response, Gainsay. And Jeff resolves the Planeswalker.
And now an uncontested Elspeth is about to happen.
Yep, Elspeth's going to use the +1 ability to make 3 dudes. There they are. Star City Games Soldier Tokens illustrated by Kristen Pleskow. Very notable on camera. Easy to recognize. Adam top decks. Let's see what he can do here.
Ooh, big draw.
A Judge's Familiar.
Get to turn on the Raptor.
That's
you get
right.
another flyer to attack Elspeth.
Could you think of a better draw than that one?
No, I could not. That's the best one right there.
So in comes the Cloudfin Raptor, and it's going to attack the Elspeth, knocking it down to 4.
Have you ever tried to attack an Elspeth down? It's a
not easy.
really bad experience.
Although Adam does have 2 flyers, he's going to somewhat be able to do it, although the racing is not going to be the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah, it's not just about the Elspeth.
It's about the tokens, really. And Supreme Verdict is going to take out the creatures on Adam's side of the board while replacing his own with more soldiers.
And let's keep in mind, Jeff, basically full hand of spells here against Adam. Just
Also going to drop a Jace. So the 2 feature match Planeswalkers in play at the same time now, as he turns up Hero's Downfall, Godless Shrine, and Island. Decides to take the spell rather than the 2 lands, not too surprising. Mutavault for Adam is going to at least feign some aggression here.
Yeah, I mean, we're so close to an Elspeth emblem at this point, rather, that Mutavault it is a 2/2 against a bunch of 1/1s, but it won't offer too much of a reprieve.
And adding insult to injury here, it looks like Supreme Verdict is going to end this one rather quickly if it wasn't over before.
Yes.
Adding another X for 1 to the board, or to Jeff's hand, rather, when he already has the Elspeth in play. 3 soldiers enter the red zone. Mutavault attempts to block. Hero's Downfall takes down the Mutavault, and 3 damage starts the low win, the road to victory.
We're now T-minus 2 turns from Elspeth getting the emblem.
Yep, and a 9 3/3 flyers should put the game away
Yes.
a little quickly as soon as that happens. Although, Cyclonic Rift could still be in Adam's deck, so Jeff probably isn't going to want to do that. Aetherling comes down. That Aetherling is only a 4/5, doesn't have any abilities right now.
Not a very good deal with that Pithing Needle in play, but Adam draws a Negate.
But a 4/5 is going to be good enough to just
Sure.
keep the pressure on. He's going to be able to not have to ultimate the Elspeth to get him in 2 turns. Detention Sphere is going to take out the Pithing Needle, and that's going to be the game. So, Jeff Johnson is going to win this one 2-1 against Adam Stutt's mono blue devotion deck. He's going to move to 7-1. Adam Stutt still in contention for top 16 action, but not going to be able to make top 8 today.
This